Sirens. Red and blue lights flashing over the lake, cutting through the dark like fireworks gone wrong. I stood there beside my truck, soaked from the knees down, while the HOA president, Karen Reynolds, screamed at the cop, waving her clipboard like it was a sword. "Arrest him! He's trespassing on HOA property," she shouted. Officer Daniels just sighed and looked at her calm as ever. "Ma'am, he said he's not trespassing. He owns the lake." The crowd gasped. Karen's mouth fell open like she'd just swallowed a brick of ice. That was the night everything blew up. But to understand how it got to this point, I need to take you back to when I thought buying a quiet lake house would finally bring me peace. 2 months earlier, I'd moved to Metteridge Lake Estates, a little pocket of calm outside Austin, Texas. My business, small construction and home repair, had finally taken off, and I'd saved enough to buy a place of my own. The lake was what sold me. Still, water, soft light, and that kind of silence you only find in the country. I didn't know then that silence was just the calm before the HOA storm. 3 days after moving in, I met her, Karen Reynolds, the queen of the clipboard. Blonde curls, blue blazer heels that clicked like a metronome of judgment. She strutted right up to my dock, arms crossed. "Good morning," she said sweetly. "You must be the new resident. I hope you've read the HOA guidelines." I smiled, paintbrush in hand. "Actually, I told her this dock isn't under HOA control. The lake's mine." She froze mid-step. "What do you mean you bought the lake?" "County records, legal transfer. It's private property," I said, still calm. She laughed, that fake laugh, the one people do right before they explode. "That's ridiculous. You can't own a natural lake." "Apparently you can," I said. "Federal Waterway Code 33 Section 328.3. Look it up." Her eyes narrowed. I could almost hear her ego cracking. "We'll see about that." I should have known right then she wouldn't let it go. 3 days later, I woke up to a bright orange violation notice nailed to my gate. Unauthorized construction on HOA property. Daily fines, signed of course by Karen Reynolds. I went straight to the HOA office, this fancy converted house that looked like a courtroom for suburban tyranny. Karen was sitting behind the desk, framed by pictures of community picnics. I held up the notice. "You might want to take this back," I said, "before it gets embarrassing." Her smile was so tight it could have cut glass. "Excuse me. You're fining me for land your HOA doesn't own. I have the deed and the federal code to prove it." She laughed again, but her eyes flickered. "You can't just throw around federal codes to get your way." "I'm not throwing them around," I said, setting a printed page on her desk. "I'm citing them. Public record." She went quiet for a second, then hissed, "We'll have our legal team review that." "Go right ahead," I said, turning for the door. "Just stay off my dock until you do." That was the beginning of the war. Weeks went by, quiet but tense. People started whispering. Notes appeared on my truck. "You don't belong here. This lake is community property." I ignored them, focused on cleaning up the water line, repainting the dock. But the peace didn't last. One afternoon, as I was unloading gravel to fix erosion near the dock, Karen showed up again, dragging 2 HOA board members with her. She blocked the delivery truck, arms flailing. "You can't drive through here. This is HOA land." I tried to keep calm. "It's erosion control," I said. "I'm maintaining my property." "Liar," she snapped. "You're building a private marina." "Karen," I said quietly, "you can't bully everyone who doesn't bow to your clipboard." That's when she pulled out her phone and said the 5 words that made my blood boil, "I'm calling 911 right now." She did, and that's how we ended up with sirens, flashing lights, and a crowd of nosy neighbors watching me get accused of stealing a lake. Officer Daniels took one look at my documents, shook his head, and told her flat out, "Ma'am, the HOA has no jurisdiction here." She turned scarlet. "We'll take this to federal court." I smiled. "You'll lose again." And for a moment I thought maybe that would be the end. But Karen Reynolds didn't lose gracefully. A week later, her teenage son and 2 of his friends broke through the gate on jet skis, waving an HOA flag like it was the 4th of July. I shouted for them to stop, but they didn't. One hit the dock gate, metal cracking, water flying. Then came the crash, a horrible echoing crunch that froze everyone. Without thinking, I dove in. The water was freezing dark and murky, but I saw him, her son, tangled in a rope under the surface. He was gasping, panicking. I cut him loose, dragged him up, and pulled him onto the dock. Karen was there crying, shaking, shouting his name. "He'll be fine," I told her out of breath. When she heard her son whisper, "You said the lake was ours," she looked at me like she'd just realized what she'd done. A day later, I found a note in my mailbox. "Thank you for saving my son. I'll stop the meetings." No signature, but I knew. For a moment, I actually believed it was over. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, a black SUV showed up. A man in a navy suit introduced himself as Mark Holloway, acquisitions director for Tond Bayview Development Group. "We'd like to discuss a business proposal," he said smoothly. "Your lake is a valuable asset." "I'm not selling," I told him. He smiled. "You might want to reconsider. Progress doesn't wait for anyone." The next day I found my boathouse vandalized. The wall spray-painted in red. "Not your lake." That night Daniels came by again, tired but firm. "They're escalating," he said. "Document everything." So I did. But things only got darker. Strange cars parked outside my gate, cameras watching from across the lake. Then, one morning, I woke up to find new stakes hammered into my yard, bright orange marked, "Property under development." The HOA logo sat right beneath Bay Views. That was when I started to crack. I sat on my porch, staring at the mess, wondering if I'd made a mistake buying this place. Maybe I should have walked away, sold it, cut my losses. The stress, the rumors, the threats, it was eating me alive. I kept asking myself, is it worth it? Was I really protecting something meaningful or just feeding my pride like Karen did? Then Bruno, my golden lab, walked over and dropped his tennis ball at my feet, tail wagging. I looked at him, then at the lake glimmering in the sunlight, and I remembered why I bought this place: to restore it, to protect it, to build something good. That was my reason. That's what pulled me back. That night I caught them red-handed. 2 men in Bayview jackets sneaking near the old pump shed, flashlights glinting off the water. I shouted, "You're trespassing!" They froze, then bolted into the trees. I ran to the pump and saw the padlock, broken, the valve half open. They'd been trying to flood the property. When Daniels arrived, he just muttered, "That's sabotage." But Bayview wasn't done. The next morning, I got served with an injunction, a legal order claiming I was obstructing community development. They wanted to stop me from setting foot on my own land. Karen's name was right there, co-signed at the bottom. I couldn't even describe the anger. It felt like standing in quicksand. No matter how right I was, they kept pulling me down. And then, out of nowhere, a lifeline. My lawyer, Maria Alvarez, called late one night. "John," she said, "we found something big." She explained that the inspection order used to shut down my lake was forged. Not filed by the county, by Bayview, using HOA email templates. That's a felony. She'd already sent it to Daniels. For the first time in months, I felt hope again. A few days later, Daniels showed up grinning. You might want to turn on the news. Channel 9 was live outside the HOA office. The headline read, "HOA, President and Developer under investigation for forgery and conspiracy." The camera cut to Karen, pale-faced, being led to a patrol car beside Mark Holloway. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just sat there on my porch, watching the reflection of those same red and blue lights flicker over the lake the same way they had months ago when this all started. By morning, the restriction signs were gone. The air smelled clean, the kind of clean you only get after a storm. I walked down to the dock with Bruno, ran my hand through the water and whispered, "We made it, old friend." That lake had seen lies, greed, pride, and truth. And somehow, through all of it, it still found a way to stay calm. You know what I learned? Sometimes doing the right thing feels like losing until the storm finally clears and you realize you were just the only one willing to stand your ground.